Deadpool and Wolverine is breaking the fourth wall and slashing records at the box office. Twisters is blowing past the expectations for a disaster movie. Nicolas Cage is as haunting in Longlegs as a giant spider in the corner of your bedroom ceiling. Are these movies worth watching? In case you haven't seen them, this is your spoiler warning. Welcome back to Movie Beings. Let's get into it.
Beings?
I'm very excited for this episode because some of these movies were a pleasant surprise. Some of them were, as expected, and some of them is just downright scary.
Downright scary? Wow. Yes. I would agree with that.
And it seems like you already have a favorite out of these three.
I do. I don't know if I won't spoil it yet.
So why don't we jump into the first movie, Twisters.
Let's do it.
So it hits theaters on August 19th, directed by a director named Lee Isaac Chung, starring Daisy Edgar Jones, Glenn Powell, and Anthony Ramos.
Glenn Powell's everywhere.
He's literally everywhere now. And I think he's slowly becoming the A-star, the A-lister frontman for movies.
Yeah, definitely. I think this will probably catapult him to being like, oh, he's got to be the guy in like a big movie, right?
Because he has a very friendly look, but I don't think he can do like more dramatic roles. I haven't seen him in a...
Well, I guess that would be the next step for him, right? Because he's done, I don't know how many now, but it seems like he's done a few like big blockbuster movies and like starred in them, whether like as the main man or kind of like maybe second fiddle. So it'll be interesting, and I think most of them have done like fairly well, like made money is what they want. Because I think it's so different now how to get like a main man compared to like, I feel like it'd be like the Tom Cruises and stuff like that, where you think, or even like, anyone on those caliber, like that would lead a movie that would use, oh, they're going to be the main guy of this movie. Where I can't even think of one now, right? He's the first guy in like a long time that I can see that I'm like, oh, he's going to be in the next blockbuster, and it's just going to be Glenn Powell. Time to get into it.
But I think that's the the balance that all the actors are trying to get, right? Because let's say if you are doing really well in one thing, then do you want to expand your horizon, or do you want to just stay in that?
Or because like I said with Tom Cruise, like he's stuck to his niche, right? He's done his like action role hero. Yeah. And that's like all the movies he does now because he knows they work. Like he has, done other stuff, but that's pretty much what he focuses on now, because I'm trying to think of other movies he hasn't done that isn't in a plane or running away from a man trying to kill him.
Or just like The Rock.
Well, that's a more like, The Rock. What is he? He is The Rock again.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing to look at the Twister, right? Because he isn't even, like I was saying before, he's not the main guy in this, right?
He's like a co-star. He's like a supporting actor.
Yeah.
But there are a few things that I like about this movie, but there are a few things that I think that it doesn't really work in this movie. But why don't you start? Like, what do you even like this movie?
I thought it was like fine. Like, I will say going in, I thought it was going to be worse than what I was expecting. Yeah. Because when we watched the trailer, or even when I watched the trailer myself, when I looked at it, I'm like, this looks goofy as hell. Like the whole fire tornado. And I'm like, oh no, is it just going to be like, watch out for the new deadly tornado kind of thing? But it didn't go that way. There was a bit of a story there that made it more interesting, or like at least kept me a bit more engaged when I probably would have been like, oh God, what's the next goofy tornado they're going to, chase? Because I did think the main actress in this, I can't remember. What's the name of it?
So Daisy Edgar Jones. So she plays Kate.
I thought her story was very well done. Because at least it gave it like someone to follow, right? Where it wasn't just like, here's somebody running around chasing tornadoes or cyclones. It was like, it gave her a bit of story and made it a bit more interesting, which like kept me a bit engaged. But I think it's still a fine movie, right? I don't think it did anything like spectacular or like broke the mold on anything, but at least it wasn't too goofy. That's my take on it.
And honestly, when we first watched the trailer and we talked about this movie before, we didn't expect this movie to do this well at the box office.
Didn't. Yeah, that as well.
Yeah. And I thought that this movie would have a different rating as well. Yeah. So we're like judging from
in what way? In what way were you saying?
So when I saw the trailer, because it's a disaster movie, right? So there would be some casualties, right? And when you have the main actor and main actress, there should be some sort of romance going on and things like that as well. But then when I just kind of watch this movie, it's like, oh, it is a PG-13 rating. And this is direction that the director decided to go
to try to get more people in the cinema, right?
Oh no! So he got rid of all the politics. He got rid of all the romance, It got rid of all the core messaging and the social messages.
There's a little bit of politics in it. Still.
There's a little bit.
Politics? Like, who's debating the tornadoes?
But yes, I was pleasantly surprised with this movie. But to be honest, I think this movie was not meant for the audience like myself, where I think I was looking for something a bit more mature, a bit more thrilling, a bit more dark and grim. This one was more like a children but disaster movie, if that makes sense.
I can see because there is still some dark moments. It does I did like how it kind of covers like the disaster aspect of the aftermath of like how it dealt with the people in this situation, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Because that was like a big turning point in this film when they all go to try to help out the people that have suffered. And it kind of, the main character at this point kind of figures out everyone's real angle with this. Like there's like, the main guys aren't really there to help people. They're kind of using it to profit. And so are the other guys, the other team that's there, the Kyle?
Yeah, Clive Owens.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tornado wrangler.
Yeah, so he's even what he's doing, it's there to profit for someone else, right? It wasn't there to help people, even though he's doing it for like, views or whatever. He's not really doing it to help people, but it kind of, that's when it turns in the movie up. It was like, it isn't so much about chasing tornadoes, about like kind of, there's a little bit of like what happens to the people left behind, right? Yeah. Which America's had a lot. Yeah. Dealt with a lot. But in this movie, it's like to the extreme, right? Where it's just like, there's a tornado all the time now. We don't know what's going on.
So the core message is just don't go to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
There's so many tornadoes.
Get out now.
But this is another weak point of this movie for me personally, because in the beginning, they set up this relationship to be some sort of a rivalry, some sort of
rivalry more than
like opposition. Like one person is doing it for scientific reasons, the other one just doing it for views, for fame, right? But then when you got to that sequence where they were helping people and things like that, it turns out Clive is doing it for good reasons as well. So we don't really have villain conflict.
Because the villain, it turns out to be, is it Javier? The guy she helps?
Javi,
he's kind of doing it for the wrong reasons, essentially.
But his motivation is right as well.
It changes, later he admits, because he's doing it, like he wants to do it for the right reasons, but he can't, like the people that back him to do it won't let him like do it for the right reasons, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what is weird, because the way it's like, it starts with like the main character, she loses all of her friends in a tornado accident. Yeah. And then Javier comes later, he's the only one that survives apart from her, and comes like, hey, you ready to go back into this? It was like 5 years later. Yeah. I thought it was a bit brutal for him. He's like, oh, come on, you're like the best, come and help us. And I'm like, I think it's right that she still has some trauma. I was like, hey, that, come on, we'll be right.
No, 5 years is long enough.
It's like, what?
So, I would say that the main story of the main character is very relatable. That you've been through some trauma, you lost the people you are close with. But in terms of the execution of the overcoming the past trauma, I think that the movie can really benefit from some extra character development. The only emotion that we got out of Kate is when Clive came to her house. This is another sidetrack, right? But he came to her house and he was trying to steal on her note or something, and she just broke down in tears. That was the only time that we actually saw some sort of emotions out of her, except for the actual incident. But for me, it feels like a children movie where no one is really bad, but no one is,
because I think it really tries to focus on all the people that are bad as like off screen, right?
Like the invisible hand,
which is fine. I think that's not like a bad angle to go about it. Because it's not like, they're meant to be just chasing tornadoes, right? It's like, how do you have a villain in this? It's like the tornadoes are meant to be the bad guys, right? Because that's what it is, right? Like the final fight in this film is them figuring out how to stop the tornadoes, right? Yeah. So I think, which is fair as well. But like you said, I think, I felt like there could have been an angle of like trying to deal with that trauma would have been more interesting.
I think so, yeah. But then that might make the rating for the movie different. Because when you start talking or showing about
like
death
and
things,
and dealing about like losing someone you love and like how to get through that stuff. Like, I'm sure there's a way to do it, but it might have made it like more darker, right? And not so accessible for everyone to watch. But That's what I mean. I think it is what it is, right? I will say not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I think it's fine. And I can see why it's had some success, right?
Yeah.
There's something there to like latch onto and like, oh, it's fine, right?
Yeah. And the overall consensus about this movie is it's like a breath of fresh air. Like when you watch this movie, it's literally about a bunch of people chasing tornadoes. And of course, there is a moral story behind it. That they are all doing this for the greater good of the people. You know, they want to.
Which is nice. Because I literally thought it was going to be like no reason. It's like let's go chase tornadoes.
Yeah.
Oh no! Look! Like kind of. There's nothing there. But I'm glad they had some groundwork. I think it helps the movie a lot.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
When it's still a bit like it is still a little goofy, so it's just like, it is what it is.
Yeah, right? There are some parts like I think it's a bit illogical. Like how did Clive find where Kate lives? Just shows up to her place by himself, even though he has a whole team, right? And there are quite a few conversations.
Well, I'm assuming the rest of the team didn't want to make out with her, right?
Right? Yeah. See, but they didn't even kiss once.
I was very surprised. I was literally waiting for it. I'm like, oh, they're going to kiss here. Oh, they're going to kiss here.
Yeah.
The net, like, I didn't realize they were aiming for the PG-13. So that's probably where it came in, where it's like, oh, I can't have them kissing.
But then she was kissing her ex-boyfriend at the start.
Yeah, that's fine. He died, so it doesn't count.
But it's a bit against the mainstream, I would say. No bromance, no big social messages. It's about like,
a little bit of a social message about like dealing with disasters.
Yeah.
But I will say there's not as much like I guess more with like in like the like darker, not darker, but people like it being a lot more darker in films, right? Which I think is fine.
It's like really fine. Yeah.
But yeah, this is definitely like, especially even with all the like matter, like all the shit that's going on in this film, it could have been darker. But like you said, they kept trying to keep it a bit lighter, even though they do deal with some serious issues, which I would have been interesting to delve into. But it is what it is. Like I said, I think it's fine.
Yeah, like this movie is doing well. I think it really boosts up the hope for the future disaster movies.
Well, hopefully, like usually they're pretty trash.
Yeah.
This is like a little bit better than that.
We will see. Well, hopefully, maybe we will see Clint Powell in a different disaster movie.
Oh gosh.
Now, speaking of not too dark, we're gonna move straight into the other end of the spectrum. We're gonna move into Longlegs.
Longlegs.
This movie is super dark.
Yeah. I don't know how much darker you could get apart from this. This was insane. I literally didn't know much about this film apart from like Nicolas Cage was in it.
Yeah.
Which is, here or there. It depends how much you like Nicolas Cage, but I was very happily surprised with this film. I really enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I have always enjoyed Nicolas Cage's movies anyway, but I think he didn't appear in a lot of horror. I think this was one of his first horror movies.
Because there's another one I watched. I can't remember the name. Something of Color. It's like a kind of psychological horror movie, kind of, based on H.P. Lovecraft's work. But it's not like he's not like the villain that he is in this film, right? I think that's the difference.
Yeah,
he's kind of in the middle of the horror. In this, he is kind of like
behind the serial killer. Yeah.
So it's like I will admit, like, because he's only maybe on screen like a few times.
Yeah,
but he does a very great job. I feel like it's like a built for him to just be like insane on screen, and it's fine, and it works very well.
And it plays into a very similar motif of Seven, with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. So the villain of the whole movie only appeared in the last 5 minutes. But then he stole the whole scene. So
well, because he's in it a few times. We see a few, because that's what I was thinking. Like, I'm like, maybe it was the first like half an hour. I'm like, I haven't seen much of him. Then there's like it shows him a bit more and how it kind of like functions and stuff. Yeah. So you're like, oh, this is like a strange person, and then you kind of get why they're strange later. But I just really enjoyed this film. Like it was, I thought it might have been a bit more like horror-y, but it's not at all, I don't think. Like if you want to watch like a horror movie to scare, like there are some scary moments, but it isn't like what I would describe as like a horror movie. It is a bit more of like a thriller mystery film. Yeah.
So when I watch this film, it gives me a very similar feeling like Prisoners, like we were talking about, directed by one of your favorite directors, Denis Villeneuve. Yeah, so we will try to say his name eventually.
Whether we get it right or not.
But Prisoners is a thriller, is a mystery thriller, and you follow the detective try to solve the cases. In this movie, Lee Harker is the lead FBI agent. And what I like about this movie, and what makes it different from Prisoners, is it has some sort of supernatural,
Yeah.
some sort of religion idea and symbolism
Yes,
as well.
very much. Because at the start, it just seems like it doesn't really get too much into like the supernatural stuff right from the get-go until there's a moment early on where she's with one of her partners early on, and they're like trying to search for a killer, and they're meant to just look through houses, and she kind of has like this feeling that he's in the house, and the guy's like, oh, okay, well, she's like, oh, let's get back up there. He's like, he's here. And she's like, oh, no, let's go search it. And as soon as he like opens up a door, gets a gunshot to the head. Yeah. And I'm like, what the hell's going on?
What a way to start a movie, right? But technically, that is not the start. The start is when you're talking to me about like we see the main character for the first time. Yeah,
the first time we see Longlegs in like the 4x3. I think we're trying to figure out the right term for the shot. But it was just like the square. And it's her in her house in the snow. It's quite well shot. Like it just like sets up the whole scene. Everything's like white. She's in her room. A car pulls up. She like walks out, and then just this creepy, looks like a creepy lady there.
Yeah.
And then just like, I think it's literally like a shot of Longlegs, right?
Yeah.
It's not a long shot, but I thought that was amazing. Like has that like flash of red, and it has like the snakes and stuff. I'm like, oh my god. Yeah. I'm like, ugh. And that like starts off the movie, right? And then it jumps into like the sprawl, and I'm like, oh my god. Like here we go.
And I have never been a fan of the horror movies, but I think making the horror movie more about mystery and solving mystery is a great way to go, because you were talking about like if you want to watch movies about ghosts, monsters, and jump scares, then this is not the movie for you.
No, not at all. If you're looking to get scared, like I already said, there's already some moments, but it's not that film.
Yeah,
it is built more about the mystery. And even the main character, like a huge focus on like what she's dealing with and what she's trying to like either solve or get through, right? Because that's why I really enjoyed this film. Because she wasn't just like here to get scared and here to run away, right? She had like an interesting story, and she's like an interesting person. She's like an introvert. She kind of doesn't really deal that well with things. She's kind of a bit weird. Because literally when she joins the FBI for the hunt for Longlegs, the detective's like, oh, you're like psychic? They just like say it.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, no, I wouldn't say that. She gets like an inkling, and she's like, oh, so you kind of like get like a good sense of it. Like it's not, she straight out knows what's going on, but has like a weird understanding of like what's happening, which is kind of interesting because it leads back when we figure out what the hell's going on later in the film. It kind of makes a bit of sense of what's actually happening, which I thought was like, oh, it was a great setup, really, because it doesn't really hint at it too much until it all unravels in like the later half of the film.
Besides the main character's story, what I like about this movie as well is the cinematography. So we were talking about like how similar this movie is to Prisoners, and what I realized is this movie contains a lot of long shots, a lot of wide angle shots where the main character seems to be a bit far away from the camera. So it gives you the feeling from the audience perspective, like there's always something watching the main character, or something is going to happen behind the screen. And I think it's just a very simple method, but the effect is very good. It's very suitable.
It sets it up early from when she's like late at home in a room, talking to her mother, and she senses that something's like watching her, and she like runs, she goes get her gun, and she like, no, someone's knocked on the door, right? They knocked on the door, and she's like, and you're like, oh shit, like what's happening? And then she like sees someone outside. She like gets her gun, runs to go see, and then sees them like walk through the house, and then she like goes in the house, and then she finds a letter from Longlegs there, and that like kind of starts it all off. Because that's when, apart from when that happened, I'm like, oh shit, I've got to try to watch like all the frames in the film, because I started noticing as I watched it, there was like imagery of like the devil, just like a shadowy figure with horns would show up occasionally. And I was like, oh my God, like I would try to notice it like every time, because I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to miss it every time it like happens in the film. And I thought that was great, because that, like you said, there's always that feeling that she's being watched or being followed through the whole film. And it does it well. It's like you're pretty much feeling suspense through the whole film for her.
And I think this is a very strong point for the mystery and horror movies, right? Because what I notice these days is when you go in and you watch a film at cinema, there are a lot of expositions, right? So the characters will tell you what's going to happen
all the time.
But for a mystery, you will see the
you learn with them.
You learn with them. Yes,
they're not telling you what's happening, right?
Yeah, I
like
completely agree.
There's like little moments, like like the head FBI Carter telling her she's psychic. It doesn't even delve into it that much, right? You kind of just, you see it, you see it happen. He kind of has a crack at it. Like they're like, oh, you've got like this ability, right? And she doesn't really, she's like, oh, kind of like, and then it doesn't like go into it, right?
Yeah.
That felt like a thing. It's like, oh, how does it like, you know, there could have been a whole thing about it. It was like maybe a 20-second conversation.
Yeah.
Which
I really like that. I really like that because it's a logical development of the characters within that world. Because let's say if you and I and one of us has the psychic power, you will not just sit here and tell me like the full story of how you develop.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
power.
like, oh, when I was young at like 10, I just noticed I was in a room one day and I heard a weird tingling feeling and a guy was running down the hall with a knife. And I just knew from that day on something was going on. Like that's how I feel like in some movies they deal with it. Yeah. And then like going to this like weird backstory, you know, of them telling you rather than, or even just showing you it at all.
Exactly.
So that's why that's why I was like, oh shit, I know I'm going to enjoy this movie because there's a lot of showing.
Yes.
They're never really telling you what's happening. Yeah. It all happens. Yeah. There's like, they're following a serial killer and she's trying to figure it out. So they go to like scene to scene. And even then it's just like, oh, this is kind of how it happens. Even that's not like a long explanation, right? They're just like, oh, the father of the family will kill them. Yeah. But there's no like fingerprints of anybody else. They're like driven to do this. And you're like, what the hell's, like, why? That's like another mystery, right? Like, why are they doing this when there's no like outside interference? Yeah. And I think this is a very delicate borderline for the movies as well, because sometimes the movie will try to be too complicated and then it kind of loses the audience. But for this movie, it's kind of struck the right balance. Like, it's mystery, but it leaves you clues and you're figuring it out with the main character. Yeah, because she's quite clever and she's doing a good job of like figuring out what's happening. Yeah. And you're there with her, right? Yeah. And I think this is another aspect that I really enjoy about this movie. It gives you the clues at the right time, right? So when the main character was trying to figure out like the connection between all the victims, we were like, what is the connection? Like there's no outside force. And then she was like, oh, I figured it out. And then the clue was given to you as she was giving it to the main detective. Yeah, that's like a very good setup for the story. Another thing that I enjoy about this movie is the sound design. Yeah, it was great. There isn't much sound design for this movie at all. Yeah, but it's all eerie and like freaky. It's just like trying to keep you on edge. I hate the silence of the movie so much. Probably because I'm so used to all the spectacles, all the explosions. So there's always something going on, but when you're put into an environment when you don't know where the next sound's going to come from, it's fucking terrifying. Yeah, because I think that's what it does really well, like the suspense of everything. Yeah. And why don't we talk about the titular character, Longlegs? So this character only appeared for like 5 minutes or 6 minutes. Yeah, total. Not long at all. And it's kind of a moving piece because when they finally like get to him and like figure it all out, it still like hasn't solved the problem. So she like figures out that they worship the devil, and she's figured out all the symbology through figuring it out. Like, oh, this is like, I can't remember the name, but it's like the 9 layers of hell, 9 circles of hell, and like figuring out the terminology and the way that like they're killing girls on their 9th birthday within so many days of them turning 9 and stuff. And it's like, what the hell is all this shit? Yeah. And then even like you have little shots with Longlegs in like of the room he's in, and you get like little visions of the devil and stuff, and even how he like prays to them and stuff. Yeah. And I thought that was like insane. And then when you finally get to them, and she like oh, can I question him? I want it because she's next. Yeah. She thinks she's next because she got the letter at the start of the film, and it's like the day before her birthday or close to her birthday. So she thinks she's like next, and then when she's questioning him, and it's like gets nothing out of him, right? He's just like, oh, like, do you worship the devil? Who are you going to get next and stuff? And he's just like rambling to himself, like insane spiel. And it starts smashing his head against the like table. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I think that sequence is like the most powerful sequence of the whole movie, because that was when Lee Harker met Longlegs for the first time throughout the movie. Well, before when she was a child, but yeah, as an adult. Yes, as an adult, and especially now she has the motivation to meet him, to question him. And again, I'm not a big fan of the horror movies, but like, I'm a big fan of the mystery genre.
And I love all the symbolisms in this movie as well. And I think Nicolas Cage did a phenomenal job as Longlegs.
Yeah, it's built for him, right?
Yeah.
Just going crazy.
But just like we were talking before, like Willem Dafoe has been asked to play the Joker on multiple occasions. But just like, I don't want to play the Joker. I think that he would be great as the Joker, but as long as the story and the character
Well, that's the
is
thing,
good.
right? Everything else has to add up. But even then, like, it might even be a bit too late for him to bother to do that now, right?
Yeah.
Especially when he's already had his like villain arc in a superhero movie anyway.
Well, have you heard the news? Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to the
Yeah, I
MCU.
saw that. Well, no, he might be the final nail in the coffin, or who knows.
And apparently, Chris Evans is coming back
as well
to play Magneto.
Oh my god, I wouldn't be surprised.
That was just a rumor, okay?
Okay.
It was just a rumor, but it might be true.
Anyway, back to Longlegs.
So another poignant character in this film is her mother. Like her story and how she how she plays along with the mystery. Because initially she goes to art because obviously she wants to know why Longlegs came to visit them. And she goes to question her mother, and her mother's like, yeah, I don't remember for the good of us. So it's like a bit weird, and the mother seems a bit weird, and it's just like a bit strange. Like, oh, all right, she's just a bit of a strange lady. But there's a point when she's in the house and she notices a door that she can't unlock. And she tries to go to unlock it, but then her mother calls her in time. But on that scene, that's when I noticed she goes to look at the door, and behind her at the doorway, there's you can see the devil horns shadow behind her, and I'm like, what the is going on? Initially, I was just like, oh, the devil's stalking her, right? Until later, is what revealed. But there's a strange question that she asks her a few times in the film, are you praying?
Like the mother is asking Lee Harker, right?
Because when her initial phone call with her is are you still praying? She's like, yes, mother, I'm still praying. And then she reiterates on it again. But when she comes, so after Longlegs is dead, she goes, she's like, okay, mum knows something about what the going on here. So she goes to visit her again. And then her mother asks her a final time, it's like, can you tell me, are you really praying? She's like, nah.
Do you still say your prayers?
And the mother laughs. So this is I'm like, why would she be laughing that her daughter isn't praying? And then it all kind of gets revealed, what the hell is actually going on? And the mother is actually helping Longlegs with the killings and what's actually happening. And it's just oh my God. And it was insane because this is oh shit, Longlegs has been living with her and the door that she was trying to open before was where Longlegs was behind and sleeping. But also that she's helping the devil, and she reveals that the day Longlegs came to visit her, she's like, I'm going to kill your daughter. Yeah. But she's like, no, I'll work for the devil essentially to save my daughter, and goes into that. And I'm like, holy shit. This is you get all the message, early symbology and stuff before, but I was like, shit. Yeah. Straight into it. Yeah. And then it kind of reveals what Longlegs' part in it. He's a doll maker. Yeah. Because this is a bit earlier in the film. They find a doll in the barn. Yeah. And they're like, what the fuck is this? And they open it up and it has this steel ball in it. And as soon as they break this out and they say, oh, she's the girl survived. She's the only survivor out of all of this. She's in an institution. But at that point, she was kind of a vegetable or mute. She didn't really talk, but she said she's been speaking for the first time in I don't know what is in 20 years or however long she's been there. And then she had a visitor who put Lee Harker's name down. We would figure out his Longlegs. And she goes on this whole spiel about if he told me whatever I would do, I would do it. If he told me to kill you, I'd kill you. If he told me to jump off the roof, I'd jump off the roof. And it's very eerie. It's what the hell? Yeah. But then, I feel it does a great job of how it reveals all this information, like you were saying before. And then figuring out these dolls are where the devil hides to kill these families, which was what the
Yeah. And I think, as a mystery movie, how you review the critical information is going to make or break your movies, right? I'm pretty sure we have seen a lot of mystery movies, but then the pivotal moments were underwhelming or were not done well. But here, as I mentioned before, the clues were given to you in the very right time, in the very right way, and you kind of figure it out as it happens, which I think is exactly the best way to go.
It's good that you're solving it with her, right? Because I'm a bit, sometimes I'm when there's a mystery movie, I'm trying to figure out as it goes along. But I feel there was enough suspense for the film for me personally that I wasn't really doing that much. I'm oh God, where's it leading to? This kind of feel. But
that's a good place to be as a movie viewer, right? You know that you are enjoying the mystery, but you kind of
I'm not trying to solve it. Yeah,
well.
I'm not trying to solve it because
I do that a bit sometimes when I watch films, so I'm trying not to because it spoils the film for you already, right? So you kind of want to enjoy it as you view it, right? Because if you're already doing that, you're probably not going to enjoy the film, right? If you're trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah.
But like, it's even like we talk about in like Tornado that there's no overarching villain, but the villain is the same. You don't see them. It is all like through imagery and like foreshadowing and like in the corner of a shot or in a frame of a shot. Yeah. You never see the devil. Yeah. It's all about his influence over people. And that's the power like Longlegs has, right? He can influence people to do what he wants. But he needs the devil in this like doll. I hate the dolls. It freaks me out even more.
Yeah.
That these dolls influence the family because we see it firsthand when her mother like blows the head out of the FBI cop and like goes off with the next doll and gives them the present, and it turns out to be Carter's family. They're next on the list because we're hinted at earlier in the film that the daughter's having a birthday party. And strangely enough, invites Lee. And it's so strange that she knocks on the door, like freaking out, and the mother and the father like, oh, thanks for coming to the birthday party. And you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah. Like, all the twists and turns are in the mystery is always so satisfying and horrifying to watch sometimes, right? It seems like you really enjoy this movie.
It's hard to watch like a mystery again after I've like solved it. It'd probably be good to go back to see if there's anything I missed, because I'm sure I have. But another point, like the ball, her mother shoots her doll. So there was a doll made of Lee Arca.
Yeah.
But I think that's what gave her like these abilities. Yeah. And when she shot the doll, it removed it, I feel. I don't think it plays out much through the rest of the film, but it is strange that like that's what I felt like that's where maybe she got her powers from. That like this doll was made of her and it's affected her for her whole life from that point, right? And was never disposed of until her mother like shot the shotgun, which was a very poignant moment.
That's fair, yeah.
And I will say at the end of the film when she saves the girl, but she goes to like shoot the doll and she can't shoot it. So, and I will say the other imagery when it finally like, where it has the cloak over the doll and you can kind of see the devil eyes through it and stuff. Maybe, I don't know if there's any other points you want. I could probably keep talking about this.
No, like you should keep going. Like for me, because like when I watched this movie, I was like, oh, this is scary as hell. But it's like a mixed feeling, right? Like I don't want to watch it, but then I can't stop watching it.
I want to know where it goes.
Yeah,
like there's so many good moments in this film. I really enjoyed it.
There are a lot of brutal moments in this as well. Like when the father of the family, they massacre his own family.
Because it was brutal. When they explained the first murder, it's like he stabbed the wife 61 times until like the knife broke off or something.
Yeah.
Bloody hell! Like it's insane. Like
it's one of the things that we don't want to see the image.
Yeah, because it never shows. There's never shows any of that stuff. But it's all about like the grotesque behind it. Because they find one later that was like a month before. And it's like they look at the bed and it's like all rotten and they're being dead for a long time. Yeah. So it's like, it's all, I don't know if there's anything else I want to say, but it was much better than what I thought.
Oh, okay. So when we were talking about this movie for the first time, we were talking about the trailer and things like that. What was your expectation of this movie? Like, how come?
I don't know, because I wouldn't say like I had high expectations or anything, or like, I was like going in like excited, but I was more like, oh, it'd be interesting to see, because I didn't know much about it at all. Like I said, I only knew that Nicolas Cage was in it. And when I heard Nicolas Cage, I'm like, oh, is he going to be some like goofy villain?
He kind of was.
Yeah.
But that's what the role needed, right? He was like an insane person who worshipped the devil and like spewing shit out of his mouth half the time that like didn't make any sense. Yeah. Like the whole cuckoo thing he did. Cuckoo. Oh my God.
Do you think that he has supernatural power as well? Because you mentioned that he makes dolls that can control people, right?
That's like the devil's power in the doll in that ball. Yeah. But he can also sway people, because the lady, when she goes to see the girl that survived, she literally says, anything he said, I would do it.
Yeah.
Right? So there's like that power there. But I don't know into what extent, like, because we never really see it. Because later they do say that the girl killed herself. She did jump out the window and kill herself. So it was like, I don't know what the message would have been from him to her, like whether like, oh, if I get captured, kill yourself or something. But
or it's just like a twisted joke by the devil.
Yeah,
because
but that's what I mean. He worships the devil, so it's like
no life's really sacred. And it's like, it's insane, like, because that's what I mean. There's no like counterpoint. Like it's all about like the devil kind of thing, which is interesting. Like it's more about his influence more than his direct, he's never directly in control of anything, right?
Yeah.
It's all about the influence. And that's what the whole film kind of jokes on. Like she feels that influence, and I think that's what her power is. She can feel the influence of evil.
Yeah.
And that's how she's able to detect these things.
And it never really plays into the fact of like any of these characters might have like a supernatural power, except for our main character.
Yeah.
But then like it doesn't really show that the villain does anything evil directly.
No, not at all. Like you never really see Longlegs do these things because all he does is make the dolls right and leaves the letters, the cipher letters, and even the letters are like insane. Like when she like figures out what they say and some of the shit that says, I'm like, what the hell is this? So it's just like evil for the sake of evil kind of thing. But that's what it is because it's the devil. That's like the idea of the devil, right?
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. It was great.
I really think that we can do a separate episode about the symbols in movies because this conversation kind of reminds me of the series with Tom Hanks playing Robert
yeah. Well,
like
the Da Vinci Code stuff.
The Da Vinci Code, the lost symbols, the devils and demons and things like that. So like I'm always fascinated about the symbolisms, and especially when they use in movies as well because it's so visual.
Yeah. It's a good thing to capture for the audience, right? But no, it's a great film. I've watched those movies. I think this is better than like the Da Vinci Code stuff. But
the Da Vinci Code is more for the broad audience. Like it's for more like a commercial kind of thing.
It was meant to be more of a blockbuster, right? This isn't phoned in to try. Like obviously they want to make money, but this isn't like that's not what this is going for, right?
But speaking about making money and great expectations, we're going to move on to probably the most anticipated movie.
Probably.
Well, right now it's still trailing after Inside Out 2.
At the moment, it's only been like a week at this point.
It's like it's breaking records. It's been the talk of the town. It's been leaked online through multiple channels. It's brought back NSYNC.
I saw that as well. I saw that. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, like but now it's becoming like a new dance routine on TikTok.
Is it? Oh my god.
but when you said you've seen it online, you were talking about the actual music video. That it's popped back up in popularity, and I'm like, okay. Did you notice the name change?
Yeah, I saw that as well. That it's like, they're from Deadpool. I'm like, okay, okay, bro.
But yeah, so we both went to the cinema to watch this movie.
We did. First one so far.
I must say there are a lot of things I like about this movie, but there are some things I didn't like as well.
How dare you, Dad?
Well, spoiler coming. Let's talk about some of the things that we like. The cameos.
Where are the cameos?
There are so many cameos in this movie.
Where do we want to start? Do we just start at the beginning?
Yeah, let's start at the beginning.
There's Dead Wolverine. He's the first cameo. That's like the first whole intro scene.
No, I like that. And I like the fact that they didn't piss on the Logan story, because it was a good ending for that story arc, but then
we'll get into it a bit later, but I do think they kind of use it a bit.
They did,
and I was like, they kind of rehash on it a bit, but I felt a bit weird about it because I'm like, is this like the right way to go about it? We'll get to it when we get to it, but I will say like the cameos, but I will say that opening scene when he like desecrates Wolverine, Logan's body, I'm like, okay, I know what movie we're getting into. That kind of like throws you into what's going to happen. I'm like, this is going to be the most Deadpool movie yet.
Yeah, there are people who were complimenting on the fourth wall breaking in this movie.
I feel like that's all it does half the time.
Like half of the movie, just like Deadpool talking to the audience.
Yeah.
But the one cameo I want to talk about, spoiler alert, Henry Cavill.
Oh my god, I couldn't believe it.
I couldn't believe it either.
And even like, see, that's the thing. It's like that's the fourth wall, and then he's like making jokes about how DC did a bad job for him. He's like, we'll treat you better. And it's like, will you really?
Probably he will get paid a lot better at Marvel.
I don't know. Maybe. But I'm surprised they didn't do more Wolverine stuff like that. Because I think they're the kind of cameos I find a bit better, where it's like one shot, right? Where it's just like, oh, here's like a cool thing, and then move on.
Yeah.
Not like, here they are for the rest of the film, and we're jumping around with them. Like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind it. And I thought that's another part of the scene, right? Where he's like trying to find Wolverine. I thought that was fun. Like when they're jumping around seeing all the other Wolverines and stuff.
Yeah. And that is becoming a new trend now, that people are going back into the comic to find the inspirations for each of those sequences. There was Old Man Logan, there was X-Weapon, there was the comic accurate Wolverine. Yeah. The 5'3" one.
5'3", well, that was funny. I thought that was great when he hopped off at the stool. Yeah, it was just like, oh, you did a great job on that stool, didn't you? Little fella? I'm like, oh god, here we go.
Another aspect I like about this movie is the chemistry between Deadpool and Wolverine.
While Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds seem to be good friends in real life, so it's not like too surprising. But I will say, like, Wolverine's kind of like the straight man.
It is, yeah.
Deadpool's cracking all the wise jokes, and then Wolverine's just in the background going, and I'm like, I felt like I was doing the same thing as Wolverine sometimes through this movie. I'm like, what's he saying this time?
Yeah. But I think this is a very classic dynamic between the two main characters, because like both of them cannot be the same.
No. Have you watched much of like Sunny Philadelphia or any of that kind of stuff? No. So the whole premise of like the straight man, right, is like he's like kind of the normal dude, not doing anything weird, and then the other players are the ones that do all the insane shit. And it's good to have a normal person that's like reacting to it, because it's like, this is insane. What are they doing?
This reminds me of like the buddy cop movies, like with
similar kind of feel, where they don't get along, and they're always arguing and literally fighting. So that kind of deal.
And of course, we have the rated R fight scenes where there's blood and gore and and some sort of inappropriate actions. Do you have a favorite fight scene in this movie?
I think I'll agree with you, because I think we talked about this even when we came out of the theatre. The car scene, when they're both in the car scene fighting, I thought it was pretty funny.
And I think during the car scenes, Wolverine delivered one of the best speeches of the movie. He was insulting Deadpool, but then you could feel the pain coming out from him because of the fact that he has this healing power. So I really enjoyed that conversation. I think I enjoyed that conversation the most out of the rest of the conversations in the movie, because Wolverine has a few. He has one with X-23. He has one with Cassandra, but
they were my favorite parts of the film as well. When there's like, you're seeing who Wolverine is.
To be honest, I didn't enjoy those conversations as much as I thought I would. But let's talk about the things that we don't like after. There are a few cameos that have been spoiled.
Yes, we get back to the cameos.
The cameos is like Comic-Con for the movie viewers. Like you go there and you see all the favorite characters. At the 2/3 part of the movie, you get to meet Elektra, Blade, and Gambit. What do you think about the casting for Gambit?
It's not really casting, because the whole rumors was early on that when they were trying to do a Gambit movie, and they had bloody Channing Tatum was like meant to do it, and that's like the whole joke behind it, right? That it's like he was meant to be Gambit, and that's why he's in this film. And like all the jokes are like, I don't think I really existed, kind of thing. And I'm like, okay,
that's fair.
I just thought it was a bit much. I was just already sick of the cameos at this point. Here we go.
Another one. If we just focus on the performance as Gambit, I kind of dislike the choice of letting Channing Tatum play Gambit. I think that he doesn't really have the charm of the character, unfortunately.
Maybe not, but I do think it's there for the joke, right? It's like the joke of like they get Blade back, they get Elektra back, they get someone that never existed on film and only was like rumored to be, right? So that's like the whole joke behind it. I think that was the point, right? It was like him joking about being Gambit that never happened, more than like him being Gambit in the film, right? Because we talk about those bad Wolverine movies, there was someone that played Gambit, right? So they're already in this film, when we run into some of the villains, there's a lot of the old X-Men villains that come back and show up in this film. So that's why I was like, I don't know how I felt about it, because I was already a bit like, that's like half this film is like, who's this dude now? And I was like getting a bit sick of it. And then I I get the premise behind him being in it, but I was like, okay, I'm a bit tired of this joke.
Yeah.
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
More than like, I thought he was a bit fun and kind of goofy, but it's just like that's what they're all meant to be there for, right? Just to make fun of. But
and of course, I think another thing that I really enjoy about this full movie is the marketing for this movie.
Yeah, well,
It's like it's everywhere now.
like we've talked about before about Ryan Reynolds, he is a great marketer, right?
But this is like the peak of all his marketing campaigns because
Yeah,
right now you go to the internet, it's everywhere on multiple channels, on multiple platforms, and I learned that the marketing budget for this movie is like $100 million, and
Well,
it feels like it, right?
well, yeah, it does. And like we talked about before, this was like the most anticipated movie of the year, maybe after like Dune 2 or something, even though that was really early. But that's the thing, they knew what they had and like we're pushing the shit out of this. And it's worked so far.
Yeah.
We might get into that later, but yeah.
Now, if we're gonna get into the parts that we don't like about this movie,
I feel like we've already been talking about it, honestly.
Yeah.
Do we want to go into anything else?
I mean, it's
Before we maybe rant about things we didn't enjoy so much?
Well, I mean, like, do you have a thing that you want to discuss about what you like about this movie?
Well, I know you maybe don't like it, but I did like the Wolverine moments and even like the Deadpool moments when it actually touches on his character a bit. That isn't like trying to crack jokes. Because I feel like I go, but like the old players in the Wolverine, Deadpool movies weren't really in it, right? They were more of like he says in this, oh look, a MacGuffin. His friends and family were MacGuffin for this film to push him forward, right? Which I felt like I get like for the premise of this film, it was meant to be more about the fourth wall breaks and like really getting into that. But it would have been interesting for him to delve into like the idea of like why now he feels like, oh, it's the time to be like trying to be a good dude, right? Because that's like the whole premise for Deadpool in this movie is like he wants to be that hero, but not for himself, for other people. That's like his journey. But there's like maybe one moment when he really like goes into it. Was it when? I think it was when like Wolverine was making fun of him. Maybe.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a really good moment, even with Wolverine going through his backstory of like why he's being like not willing to help and like against it all.
Yeah.
And I felt those moments of like personal growth really good. But like I said, they always get back to the fourth wall and jokes and stuff. And like, which is what the movie is, right? So I knew that already going in. I wish there was more of those moments, but there probably wasn't. But I did enjoy that stuff.
Yeah.
And like fighting all the Deadpools, it was kind of all right.
Yeah.
I thought it was maybe a bit much, but it was still like a bit of fun. I didn't mind the introduction of like the TVA, but they were always going to be in this film just because that's how do they get into all the other like timelines and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I did like the guy that was like kind of the villain, like the guy running it all. He was like,
Paradox.
Yeah, he was kind of goofy. I thought he was funny. It was just like a straight man, kind of like these grand ideas, and Deadpool's just like, what are you going on about? At one point, he's like eating a sandwich in his face, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird, but I kind of liked it.
Yeah. And I think this is like the balance that they're trying to get, right? Because for a Deadpool movie, you don't want it to be too serious, but you don't want it to be too goofy either.
Which I kind of find it weird, because I do feel like the first two Deadpools are quite serious.
Yeah,
like they deal with quite serious
yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
But I feel like they deal with them better in that film than this.
I
personally.
agree. No, I agree with you there, because I think in the first and the second movie, the one thing that it has better than this one is the villain.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with that.
Well, I mean, like the first one, it's more like an origin story.
Yeah.
But then, like the villain was there. At least it's like a counterweight for Deadpool's, ridiculous humor and things like that. The second one, there is a clearer motivation and there's a moral dilemma that he has to face. In this one, I didn't really know who the villain was.
Well, I thought she was like an interesting character, but I just think they didn't really do a great job.
I agree.
Because she was more of an obstacle to overcome to like get to where they're going. Yeah. And then she like turns into the main villain, right?
Yeah.
She like takes over the MacGuffin to like kill all the timelines or whatever.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting, but could have been done a better way.
I agree. I completely agree. Well, if we want to talk about the first villain, that is Mr. Paradox. He's not supposed to be, but then like this is what I was talking about with my friends as well. This movie feels like a Marvel movie now.
Which it tries to joke about.
Yeah.
And like make pokes fun at. Because that's what I was trying to fight with. I'm like, is it all right that you make fun of all the things Marvel does, but then you do it anyway? Because I'm like, he's like, oh, jokes about the MacGuffin. I'm like, this movie had tons of MacGuffins. So many. And I'm like, does that excuse it? Because it joked about it?
Probably not.
Because there's the whole, another MacGuffin is like the Doctor Strange rings that she happens to have. And it's like, oh, I've got this thing. Like, oh, so that's Doctor Strange's thing. I guess we'll use that. And it's like,
Mhm.
it didn't really have any setup or anything. It's just like, oh, look, here's another thing.
I completely agree with that point. And this is the thing that I was a bit upset about. You know, like during the first sequence where after Deadpool got a new suit and, you know, he
Revel in it a bit. Yeah.
yeah. And Paradox was telling him that now you get to be the hero you always meant to be. Oh, but what about my timeline? Yeah, don't worry about that timeline. It's going to be erased.
Yeah.
That was an exposition,
Yeah.
right?
And he says that. I think he points it out.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, he like, this is the exposition time or something. He like jokes about.
And it gets back to your point, right? If you know the thing that you're doing is not the great thing to do, and then you still do it anyway, does it make it right?
Like, no matter how good the joke is, like poking fun of it, like, in what way does it like work?
Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to, even when I was watching the film, I'm like, I get it. I understand what they're trying to do, but is the execution there for it?
No, I don't think so. And I think this movie falls into the trap of using the spectacles to hide the fact that the story is quite weak.
Or even, but that's what I've seen online, people really enjoy that stuff. They like seeing all the old guys come back and all the jokes about that. And then it's just like, how's this much different than any of the other stuff Marvel has done already, right? Like, because the best way I would describe this film, it's like a bit of fun, bit of goofy fun, but don't like delve into it too much kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about it a lot more than I thought, even maybe more than Longlegs, just because I'm never usually the one that like jumps on the bandwagon, and I'm usually trying to do the opposite just to be, you know, edgy or whatever. But it's more like, I'm like, did I enjoy it or did I not? Like, I still think it was fine and I still had fun.
Yeah.
But it was more that like all these things that are like, I don't like about films usually, does this get the pass for it? And I think I'm leaning more to like the no.
I think so as well. You know, if we talk about the second villain, Cassandra Nova, when we met her for the first time on screen, she went through this whole spiel of her backstory.
Yeah, more exposition.
Yeah,
right?
and I was like, we don't need to know about all this. We just need to know about her motivation, and she doesn't have one.
Because that's the thing. She's just stuck. She wants to be where she is, right?
Yeah.
And she's kind of just likes to do shit for fun because she's like literally the strongest being there, right?
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, without a motivation, then the character's either a hero or a villain. It's just plain boring. Like, why would we care about?
Because there is a point where they try to reach out to him, like, if you met Xavier, he would still try to help you and do the right thing, which is right. But it doesn't matter. She still does bad shit and tries to end everything anyway, right? Like, it's not.
But that's the thing, right? Like, what is the motivation for her to do the bad thing? Because
she was kicked out because it's like, they kicked her out early because they knew she was going to be a problem. Like, that's what the TVA do. They find someone that's going to be a problem for the timeline, and then they get rid of them, right?
I understand that, but I think
I wasn't saying I didn't get it, but I mean, like, you know, that's like why she's bad, because she's like, oh, I didn't get a chance, so, you know, this is what I do, and I'll with everybody, right?
And I think the story could benefit more from giving her a motivation to get out of the void, because she was young.
Yeah, and she didn't want to get out. That was the thing. Yeah. But that's the other thing you get bad when you have so many kind of like, you know, you have all these people in the film. Like it takes time away from like Wolverine, Deadpool, all these other characters you have to like maybe delve into it to like develop them to make it a bit more of an interesting film. But like I said, I don't think that's what they're going for here. I think they're really going for a lot of the fourth. That's what I mean. It does feel like a very Deadpool movie, right?
Yeah.
Compared to the other two, where it's really trying to break the fourth wall every chance it gets. Because like I feel like all those characters are in it. He makes a joke about Blade literally says, "I'm the only Blade," and then Deadpool like winks to the camera. Like, oh, we get it. There's going to be a new Deadpool. And then he has a shot. It's Jennifer Garner, who used to be married to Ben Affleck, who used to be Deadpool. Daredevil. And she's like, what happened to Daredevil? He's gone. He's like, oh, that's fine.
That's fine, yeah.
And then it's like, he even has a shot of Hugh Jackman, where Hugh Jackman has been recently divorced. And he's like, he just met, I can't remember what the initial lines are. I was like, oh, you're just dealing with a divorce or something. And I'm like, okay, bro. Like, I don't mind the fourth wall breaking, but I was like, oh, shit. I'm like, okay, bro.
There's a lot of jabbing at the actors.
Which is fine. I don't think it's wrong, but it's just like, that's what happens a lot. And I almost feel like the cameos are there for that.
Yeah.
Because we see, is it Johnny Sims? Flame Man? What's his name? Chris Evans.
Johnny Storm.
Yeah, he's like the first one we see, right?
Yes.
It's like, he's like, oh, this is Captain America, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, oh, no, he's the,
Flame On.
Flame On.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool, but then it's just like, after that point, I was like, oh, okay. Is this what this is what they're going for now? Here's all the other cameos.
Yeah.
I was just like,
and you were right.
I was, and I was like, oh.
So if we have to pick the one thing that we dislike about this movie, and unfortunately I have to disagree with you there, except for the conversation they have in the car, all of the Wolverine moments to me in this movie were really weak. There were two moments. The one that he was talking to Cassandra Nova inside his head, where I feel all this with all
when
the
she's trying to manipulate him.
Yeah, that one was weak to me. The second one when he was sitting next to the fire and X-23 came to sit next to
I actually like that, but the point I didn't like about it, that's when I feel like it plays on Logan a bit too much, because it's kind of rehashing what Logan went through with this Wolverine again, which I don't think is bad, but I feel like it does kind of take from that a bit, where it's like I get it, like how do you get this Wolverine to kind of like come around and like want to help and be a hero, and it's like that's the angle they went for, because I even I don't mind her being included, but I feel like I'm like, oh, was it just for that point? Like I feel like it should have been a moment between him and Deadpool or something, right?
Yeah.
But like I do like the idea of like what Wolverine is dealing with there, right?
Yeah,
it's a cool point.
I like it as well. Yeah.
But like
the execution, like the execution
maybe wasn't as great as it could have been.
Yeah, I agree. And like we have already established that Hugh Jackman is a great actor. But
even Ryan Reynolds is good as well. We've talked about that as well. Like,
but even in these scenes, especially the one when he was talking to X-23, it's like X-23 was like, oh, like we don't want to talk about it. We don't need to talk about this. He said, no, I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
And he's trying this whole story.
Yeah, which I didn't mind, because I do think Hugh Jackman does give. That's why I enjoyed it, because I felt like he did give a very good heartfelt like remembrance of it, of like what he dealt with.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about when he's dealing with Nova and she's in his head, we talk about how the cameos aren't great. That would have been a great point to bring back some of the old X-Men.
Yeah.
That he like sees, we played through that vision of him like watching them dead, and him going like on a murderous run. We see it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like we talk about like Longlegs, they show us a lot of the stuff. I wish they showed us that scene. It would have been cool to see like
excellent
Storm, Xavier, the Beast, all these old characters.
Yeah.
Or even maybe they use the new X-Men that we had, like have them be like he's there at Wolverine or whatever, right? And that would have been a cool moment to have all those cameos, right? Because it would have been poignant to the story, right? Not just like a joke for Deadpool to make fun of, which is, like I said, that's the point. Yeah.
I cannot agree with you more. Like that sequence could benefit so much from just showing instead of telling. But throughout that whole scene, we just the two of them talking.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want to hear the story. We want to see the story.
And it relies a lot on the actors, which I don't think either of them were bad, but it's hard when it's like, here's another expedition dump, right?
Yes. And he did the same thing for the sequence where he was talking to X-23.
It's like, that's what I mean.
Like I think during those moments, because if we are going to show all the past actions during the moments with X-23 next to the fire, he could have just said this. Like he could have said something that he can refer back to later, like, "Oh, I could have been there," like this is my family or something like that.
Because I guess that's why it's there, right? Because it's showing her like how similar he is to her Logan, right? And that's why she's like, "Oh, that's what because that's what I liked." I was like, even though it hints at it a bit, and I didn't like taking away from Logan so much, but the point of like, "Oh, you're very similar to my Logan." He didn't want to be the hero. He didn't want to have to step up to be that guy.
Yeah, and it's one of the details that the movie kind of hinted at, but it never acts on it. So if you remember the first time that we met Cassandra, he said she said that, "Oh, I have never had a Wolverine in the void before." So it's kind of hints that Wolverine has always been the hero. He was never the outcast, right?
At the start, when they first get to him, they say, I think it's Paradox, right? He's like, he's literally the worst Wolverine.
But then we don't get to see it. We can only hear about it.
Yeah, he only tells us about it, right? Yeah. And even like his actions through the film aren't like bad. It's more like he's just kind of really reluctant to help. Yeah. Is kind of what he shows, right?
And I think that's an excellent point as well. So let's say if you want to establish him as the Wolverine that has done all the wrong things, just let him do all the wrong things.
Because that's what I mean. There's plenty of times where they could have shown it. And like I talked about before, like they could have done it in like when she's in his head. Yeah. And that's a perfect time to have like a flashback to his memories to show it,
Mm.
even though it was him. Because at that point, he was like being a decoy so Deadpool could get the head and put the helmet on her so she could stop using the powers. But that still would have been a great point to be like, show what happened. But
Yeah.
it is what it is, right?
Mhm.
Like, this Deadpool was meant to be more about that fourth wall breaking and jokes.
Yeah.
Where like it wasn't going to be that poignant film about like their kind of development and their growth.
Which is a shame. I would have enjoyed the movie much more.
Which I think is fine. Like a lot of whether people will say like we're wrong or right, but it's all about what everyone gets an enjoyment out. Like I think if you enjoy this film, don't hate us for not like enjoying it as much as you.
This movie was enjoyable.
Yeah, I think I still had fun.
Yeah.
But for people to say this is like the greatest movie, like if people are going to be saying this is the greatest Marvel movie or the greatest comic book movie, I don't think it stands on that.
Yeah.
I just think it's like a good fun movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think we want to wrap up this movie in the terms of like I really like the end credits where they got all the old footage from 20th Century Fox.
Yeah, all their old like Marvel movies. Because that's what I was sad about. I'm like, I can see that he was trying to kind of give all those guys like a bit of a send-off, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think it was done well enough because it shows a lot of X-Men, right?
Yes.
Obviously because of Wolverine. But a lot of those characters we don't see. Like it shows the X-Men that Hugh Jackman's in and it even shows the new X-Men, right?
Yes.
The only characters we really see from them are the bad guys, right? Like there's the flame dude, the pyro.
Yeah.
There's the red guy that can kind of like vanish.
Yes.
There's
Sabretooth.
Yeah. I'm sure there's other guys missing as well.
There was Lady Deathstrike with the claws. There was
it
Psylocke as well.
Yeah. So there are like those characters, but do they really count? Like they're like I think they're like actually good cameos because they're not like blatantly onto it. Only when like Wolverine fights thing early on. I've already forgotten his name. Even
like Sabretooth.
Yeah.
No, I mean like this is why I said in the beginning like this movie to me after I finished watching it it's like a Comic-Con where you get to see a lot of your favorite characters. It plays on your nostalgia a little bit.
Yeah.
It brings you back to your childhood memories. It's like a fun movie. It's like a movie where you go and you get to live all the happy memories.
All the comic book stuff, like you get to enjoy it, which is fine.
Yeah.
But as like a movie, I would think it's like fine.
Yeah, it's not a strong movie.
Yeah.
But apparently a lot of people would disagree with us.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was like, not backpedaling, but more of like saying, hey, if you enjoy it, don't take our words, know, that you have to not like it as well.
And the reason why I said it is because right now, this movie has broken all the box office records.
Yes.
The reported budget is $200 million for the movie and $100 million for the marketing, as we mentioned before. As we speak, the movie, like at the point of this episode, the movie has been in the cinema for 5 days.
Yeah.
And it has already raked in $630 million.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember what Inside Out was. Like, that's the only thing you compete, like, I would say would maybe compete with that.
Yeah.
But it might beat it. I think it'll probably get to $1 billion, I would think.
Yeah.
But whether it gets to, I don't know what Inside Out finished on, like 1.2 or something.
Yeah,
but
somewhere around that. So Deadpool and Wolverine is predicted to hit $1 billion next week. So hopefully we can get an update on that. And if we are going to talk about the box office of the movies that we discussed today, Longlegs has only generated $75.3 million.
Which is more than I thought. Like when you think about this film, like I said, it's not a blockbuster, right? So it's not looking to make that kind of money.
Yeah.
It's just hoping people will go watch it more than anything, right?
Yeah. But I think in terms of longevity, I think after a while, people will unfortunately remember Longlegs more.
I don't think so. I think it's hard to say because it's always easy to be like, we enjoyed this more, people might enjoy it more. Like, I think it might have more of a unique, bit of a niche, like, fan base for it, but it'd be interesting to see where this Deadpool movie stands up over like after a year or two, but I don't think it'll be like, there's a lot of movies that like, we'll probably talk about it at Longlegs, but when other movies like Spider-Man No Way Home, a lot of people rave the shit out of it. That's what it reminds me of, that it does a lot of cameos and a lot of callbacks.
Yeah.
But where it's a similar thing with that movie, I think it's fun, but I think all that trying to call back to everything hurts the film. That's what it reminds. This is what Deadpool reminds it of. I think everyone's hyped in the moment, but maybe after a bit of time when people realize like, oh, it wasn't really as great as it was. But I don't know. Like I said, this is a week after the movie, so it might be a bit too early to call on the like. Maybe won't be remembered as fondly, but who knows, right?
Yeah, and of course, we have the Unpredictable Twisters movie. So, if during one of our previous episodes, we were discussing the trailer, but this movie performed so well at the box office, $239 million and 172.9 domestically on a budget of $200 million.
Which is like, at the moment, is like, just like maybe just enough or close to even, but you were telling me before, right, that like the opening week for it was amazing, right?
Yes, during the opening weekend, it earned $80 million worldwide, and it's only projected to earn $50 million,
which is crazy.
Yeah,
because like we said before, we didn't expect anything from this film, and also like I think it hurts that like Deadpool came out a week after, like we were talking about that it was like this is a huge phenomenon that's happening, and it's like it's going to hurt. Whether or not they would have done better, it might have probably made a little bit more if, say, Deadpool didn't come out at the same time. But it's always interesting to look at that kind of stuff in like retrospect when people look back and be like, why didn't Twister make as much money? And it's like, it made more than it ever expected to make, right?
Yeah. And this is a very interesting point that I think we are going to discuss further in terms of the critics and the audience, right?
Yeah,
so when you watch a movie, people might have different opinions. So who's going to be the correct one?
I don't even want to put it that way because because art is always subjective, right? Someone's going to like something you don't like, and something you don't like, someone's going to like. So I don't think you want to be bogged down. I think people get a lot bogged down there these days about having the right opinion about something. So that's what I'm saying about Deadpool. We mightn't enjoy it as much as everyone else, but doesn't mean you don't have to enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same with some of these other movies. Maybe you really enjoy Twister more than we do. Maybe you don't like Longlegs as much as we did because maybe it didn't scare you enough, or maybe you didn't find it as interesting with all the symbology and maybe. But that's what we're trying to find out. Like, where is there a line that's like can satisfy everybody and feel satisfied watching a movie, or is it always going to be the critics don't like something, the audience loves it. The critics like it, the audience don't love it. So it is a very interesting thing to go into.
Awesome. And I think we have reached the end of the episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't seen these movies, definitely go to the cinema.
They all have their own points to enjoy.
Yeah.
So I definitely would say go watch them.
Definitely.
and have your own opinion.
And yes, and click on the like button, click on the subscribe button, turn on the bell for the notification for the latest episodes. Until next time, I'm Darren.
And I'm Tim.
And this has been Movie Beat.